Normally, I try to focus on more positive topics, but this documentary and the allegations around Suze Orman's approved card are directly related to what we talked about last week. Last week, I gave my top 10 tips for mortgage success, and one of them was to either have a good credit score or no credit score at all if you have reasonable history that can be used to justify manual underwriting. And it's a well-known fact that having a good credit score or a high FICO score is easily the path of least resistance when it comes to getting a good rate on your mortgage. Before FICO, manual underwriting was simply the way that everybody got their mortgage, and it still exists today because there's a good percentage of Americans who don't have credit cards and don't have a FICO score. Many of you listening know Dave Ramsey's advice when it comes to credit cards and may very well have followed that advice, cut all your credit cards up, and gone the path of absolutely no interaction with a debt product other than a mortgage. And if that describes you or someone you know, you realize that there could be a good market for a product that could help build a credit score without having to interact with a debt product. I expect you probably have one of two reactions to that. One, that's ridiculous, that's not how credit scores work. Or two, that would be intriguing, and if such a thing existed, I would be interested in that. With that, the documentary that we're covering today has a lot that is alleged against Suze Orman. The documentary itself is called How Suze Orman Scammed the Working Class. And by sharing this with you, I'm not validating or supporting the evidence for or against Suze Orman. I simply want to draw awareness to the allegations that are made here in this documentary because Suze, as we're about to hear, had a debit card, a prepaid debit card, that she claimed could generate a FICO score. Listen to this.
You deserve to have a vehicle like my approved card. If I can be doing that for you, can you just help me help you?
Now tell me about your prepaid card that you brought out, because you've taken a lot of flack for this.
Yes.
They're like, Susie's on the take here, she's raking up your fees.
You have something new that everybody needs.
It's in my
And
pocket.
Regarding a credit card?
No, it's a debit card. In fact, this is a prepaid card. It's called the approved card.
Approved in the approved card is a reference to Suze Orman's show where callers would come in and ask permission to do something with money and she'd either approve them or deny them. And I'm going to reiterate here, everything in this documentary is alleged. As you see on the screen, if you have the video, the documentary is starting to imply that this is a scam. Let's hear a little bit more about that.
18 to 24 months from now,
Yes.
a debit card will generate a FICO score. A debit card can create a FICO score. A prepaid debit card will start to create a FICO score for you. People who pay on a debit card can have a FICO score. And therefore, a debit card will generate a FICO score. Can you imagine? You can get a FICO score. So you've got to join me in this, everybody.
This is a big deal.
Big deal.
Well, I think that's ample video evidence to show that Suze Orman did claim that her debit card could create or generate or build a FICO score.
Read my lips, folks. Prepaid debit cards do nothing, zero, zilch to help your credit. Don't argue with me because it just simply is not true.
As we keep rolling, notice many trusted media outlets supported Suze Orman and her approved card while others fought vehemently against it.
Don't you understand? There is millions and millions of dollars in poverty. The more you don't know about your money, the more you don't want to get involved with your money, the more money people can make off of you in late fees and these high prepaid card charges.
I'm pretty sure the reason the documentary included that clip is to show that Suze Orman believes that those who are afraid to look at their money are easy to take advantage of with fees.
Suze Orman's card has 20 fees.
Yes.
20 fees.
It's called the approved card. The approved card. So just go online. You can find it under Suze's name or right in the approved card. I know it's being talked about everywhere now that the story broke today, but just go online tonight and read more about the approved card and what Suze is doing individually to try to address the issue of poverty in this way. So, Suze, thank you.
If you're listening to audio only, the documentary goes through a series of article titles that are talking about the approved card.
Don't believe in the naysayers and what they say I'm doing, because that's not what I am doing.
There you go. All right.
Understand, and I'm upfront with you, if you use this card the way I tell you, there will only be a $3 a month fee period. There is a $3 a month charge, and that's all it will cost you if you use it like I tell you to. Yes, there's a fee on this card. It is $3 a month. But if you use this card exactly like I tell you to, it will never cost you more than $3 per month.
Now, I wish I knew more about how Suze says you should use the card. She says that she has a way of using it that will only cost you $3 a month. But that also implies that there are other fees that could be brought up if you don't use it in a particular way. I do just wish that way was clear. If anyone knows of a resource where Suze spells out exactly how the approved card is supposed to be used, I would like to see it referenced in the comments.
HLN tallies up the fee frenzy you'll face with Suze Orman's approved card.
$2 for a paper statement, $1 for pay by check, $2 for over-the-counter cash withdrawal, and $2 to talk to a live customer service agent after one free call per month.
It also costs you anywhere from $3.50 to $4.95 to load money on the card.
Enter personal finance guru Suze Orman with a dose of her signature tough love and something else, a new kind of plastic. Here she is with my colleague, Juju Chang.
Suze Orman is telling people to quit their banks.
People can go off the grid. They can take their money out of a bank.
But these days, Suze's real mission, turning all her firepower against a surprising new target, debit cards. High monthly charges, fees for every transaction, including ATMs. Suze says the pitfalls are endless. So today, she's launching her own debit card, which is fully transparent, no hidden fees, just $3 a month.
You hate banks, and yet you're getting in bed with a bank to do the prepaid card.
Yeah, now, first of all, let's be clear. I don't hate all banks.
Again, for audio-only listeners, the documentary went through the terms of service list of all the fees that are associated with this prepaid debit card, and they were extensive, assuming that the information that this documentary is producing here is genuine. Before we jump back into the documentary, I want to point out the biggest red flag to me from that last segment. It was Suze is going up against the banks, that she doesn't like banks, and she's trying to get people to pivot away from banking to her prepaid debit card as a banking alternative. I want you as a consumer to be very leery of anyone who gets very grumpy with banks in general just to try to sell you another bank, especially if that alternative is not FDIC insured. Now I'm going to jump right to the middle of the documentary because after that last segment, the topics pivot to other allegations against Suze Orman that aren't related to the approved card. If you're interested in the other allegations, I encourage you to go give this documentary a listen, even though the video and audio quality leaves something to be desired.
If you have a card that is sharing information with a credit bureau, they need to be sharing it with one of those 3 credit bureaus, because otherwise it doesn't report. Because this has been such a serious problem in the United States of America, I decided I needed to do something about it. So I have a prepaid debit card that I have brought out. It is called the approved card. Yes. All right, you will pay $3 a month to have this card, but here is the news on this card. It is the first prepaid general purpose card, debit card, in history that is sharing information with a major credit bureau, TransUnion.
Okay, so the claim here is that this is the very first debit card to be sharing information with a credit bureau, TransUnion in particular. Now, TransUnion, Experian, and Equifax are the 3 major credit bureaus that collect your information when it comes to your credit accounts, when it comes to your debts and your debt payment history, in order to generate a FICO score or a credit score that is then used by creditors to evaluate your credit worthiness or the likelihood that you will pay back a loan to them. Even though I don't have any evidence beyond this documentary to prove it, I do believe Suze Orman when she says that the approved card was sharing information with TransUnion.
It will take 18 months after you start using it for TransUnion to decide, is that information relevant so that we can calculate scores on it.
This is blatant fraud. Suze's card could not do a thing to help anyone's credit score.
Credit scoring systems are not going to consider information that is not predictive of future credit risk. And a prepaid debit card is really nothing more than me using cash, which does not tell a story about my credit usage.
So let me I'll ask the question in a way that is easy to understand. If I go to Starbucks, does it mean I'm a worse credit risk? I don't know. What does it tell you? Literally nothing, right?
It tells me that you like coffee.
That's funny. I will add here that this is sort of the catch-22 when it comes to FICO scores and Dave's position on it. A FICO score is indeed purposed for lenders to figure out whether or not you are a high-risk or a low-risk borrower. That's the whole idea behind them. And the point brought up here is that your spending habits with cash don't give any information about how likely you are to pay back a lender.
Something is wrong with the system. So help me fix it, people. Here's how. For the next few months, the data that is coming off of this card, the approved card, and you would go to theapprovedcard.com to get one, is being analyzed by TransUnion, one of the 3 major credit bureaus out there. They are finding, and they are happy about what they are finding. It is possible that in the next 6 months to 1 year, TransUnion will deem that activity on a prepaid card will be included on their credit reports. If it's included on their credit reports, it is going to generate a credit score for you.
I want to bring up here that this is the first time in the documentary that we've listened to so far where Suze, instead of saying this card will generate a FICO score for you, says that the information is being analyzed to see if the information on there is relevant to your FICO score, which is a very different claim.
That is history making, but nobody out there wants me to succeed.
It's a scam disguised as a pseudo-experiment. Somehow, Orman convinced TransUnion to play along. Maybe it was getting all those card users' personal private buying information for free that enticed them. Or maybe it had something to do with that $143 a year that many approved card victims paid to have access to their TransUnion scores that are readily available for free through Credit Karma and other venues.
If you don't know, you can completely access your credit reports from all 3 credit bureaus for free. The federal government ensured this by passing a law that says you have the right to know what is on your credit reports for free at least once a year.
TransUnion's only comment about their big experiment with Suze Orman's approved card came to one Chicago Tribune journalist, who wrote, "Orman says she's not sure where this will lead, and TransUnion wouldn't provide much clarity. When I tried to talk with the company, a spokesman merely emailed me, TransUnion is committed to supporting Suze's efforts to understand the impact of prepaid card use on an individual's credit health. Our goal is to help Suze understand whether including this data in a consumer's credit report would impact access to credit products."
So this implies to me that TransUnion was genuinely collecting information, but they were not committed to an actual plan on how they were going to translate this information into building a credit score. More or less, they were collecting many consumers' information to quote-unquote help Suze understand.
My goal is to get it so that debit cards create a score. And if it can, we've changed the scoring system in the United States of America.
And so is one credit agency enough, though, to make those scores relevant?
No, I want Experian to join me in this. I want Equifax. Come on, everybody.
This is something I want you to remember for the main topic. She said that it's important that if this is going to be a genuine change, that all 3 major credit bureaus get on board with an edit to the scoring system. And at this point, I completely understand why what Suze is selling sounds desirable to the consumers. Again, for anybody who wants to have a credit score without having to interact with debt products, this is appealing. There was clearly a market for the sales pitch, and that market still exists. Now I'm going to jump forward 15 more minutes in the documentary to cover our second to last segment. Check this out.
One might wonder why FICO themselves would not speak up, or even take legal action against someone who is using their name with false insinuations and promises to scam the public.
You all do know what a FICO score is, don't you? Just in case you don't know, FICO stands for Fair Isaac Corporation, the company that kind of started these credit scores years and years ago.
Let's have a quick look at Suze's relationship with Fair Isaac Corporation, whose FICO scores Suze Orman helped put on the map. FICO has paid Suze tens of millions of dollars to tell people how a good FICO score is the most important thing in their financial lives.
This to me is a really interesting claim to say that FICO used Suze Orman to push how important a credit score or a FICO score actually is. It's purely a marketing shtick, just like a diamond is a girl's best friend. In saying that a FICO score is indicative of your financial success and your access to financial success is just marketing. It's marketing that encourages you to be a better borrower so that you can be a credit-worthy borrower, so that more people can lend you more money with confidence that they will make money as a result of working with you. And it's very interesting that Suze Orman allegedly was instrumentally connected with FICO in this marketing effort.
If you've ever watched me, you know I'm somebody who is FICO frenzied, which means I always talk about FICO scores. And to my surprise, many of you still don't know what a FICO score is. So if that happens to be you, listen up to me. A FICO score is a 3-digit number.
In 2003, Congress passed a law giving people the right to see their credit scores. FICO teamed with Suze Orman to charge around $50 a pop for her FICO kit.
I mentioned earlier that the federal government passed a law that allows you to access your credit reports for free every year. And what's being alleged right here with the Suze Orman FICO kit, as we're about to hear, is that FICO and Suze Orman were still charging for this even though consumers could access their reports for free.
Suze Orman's FICO kit brings together two powerhouses of personal finance. 1 year later, MyFICO announces 10 million FICO scores purchased. In 4 short years, MyFICO.com has grown from a one-product experiment in consumer education to become the most trusted source in the country.
A FICO score now determines if a landlord will rent to you. In many states, it determines what your car insurance premium happens to be. It's also starting to determine if an employer will hire you.
What I think Suze said right there is simply a reflection of how brilliant FICO's marketing is, that their score needs to be prioritized by consumers, employers, lenders, and insurance agencies all alike.
Based on this lawsuit, the kit not only gave bad advice, but was actually sharing kit users' information about their finances with creditors. To disguise these debt collection efforts by Suze Orman as advice is misleading, deceptive, and extremely damaging to consumers. The CRAs and Fair Isaac are in business to assist creditors and collectors with the collection of debts. Is it legal to request that consumers submit personal information so that current and future creditors can use it to aid their debt collection efforts? Fair Isaac fails to disclose that the purpose of this service is debt collection. That lawsuit was successful.
I don't know about you, but I found that chilling. The kit that Suze Orman was selling in conjunction with MyFICO, with Fair Isaac Corporation, allegedly, according to the documentary and the lawsuit information that the documentary showed, it was all a thing where you charge someone for a kit, you collect their information, and then utilize that to improve debt collection. At least that was my understanding of that. Solely in my opinion, that feels gross.
With Orman suggesting throughout the media landscape that using her approved card was going to lead to an improved FICO score.
You know how Romney was out of touch with the poor people? The people who are judging prepaid cards today are out of touch with the poor people.
Many journalists wanted to know what FICO thought about it. This must have put FICO in quite a challenging position, since they are business partners. FICO responded only to one of those journalists, saying, "In our experience, spending is not actually a great indicator of the thing that the FICO score tries to measure, which is the likelihood you're going to default on a credit bill."
And that right there is another gut punch against the approved card from this documentary. Allegedly, what's put forth here is that FICO straight up reported that the information from a prepaid debit card transaction ledger is not relevant to what a FICO score is supposed to be measuring. Let's break away from the documentary and validate what's going on here on myfico.com directly. This section of the website is linked in the description below, but it's about what your FICO score is comprised of. We have a pie chart that says 30% of your FICO score comes down to how much you owe. Straight up, how much you owe, implying how much you owe on your debts. 10% of your score comes from reports on new credit that you have taken out. 15% of your credit score is comprised of how long your credit history is. 10% of your score is comprised of your mix of credit. It's this little chunk of your score that leads credit experts to advising you to take out multiple different types of credit, i.e. not only just credit cards, but a mortgage and car loans and on and on. Finally, the biggest part of your credit score is derived from your payment history. And it's this chunk of how your credit score is calculated that, with ambiguous interpretation, could translate to someone believing that a debit card can indeed impact your credit score if your payment history is reported to a credit bureau. Let's scroll down on this webpage and see if it says anything more about payment history. Okay, we've got the importance of credit categories. FICO score looks at your credit report. Payment history is the first of these sections that shows up. Let's read what it says here. The first thing any lender wants to know is whether you've paid past credit accounts on time. This helps a lender figure out the amount of risk it will take on when extending credit. This is the most important factor of your FICO score. I don't think there's any room to misinterpret that. The payment history is directly tied to your credit accounts, not your debit accounts, not your banks, the accounts where you borrow money and then pay it back. It's looking at debt payment history explicitly and exclusively. That is, according to myfico.com, Fair Isaac Corporation's website themselves. To wrap up what I want to share with you from this documentary, we're going to jump close to the end to see what ended up happening to the approved card as it no longer exists.
The approved card was quietly discontinued without a single peep from Orman.
Suze Orman card is shutting down. Consumer advisor Clark Howard shows us what to do if you have one of these cards.
When her approved card closed, Orman ignored all the requests by journalists and card users for information about why it was closing. Instead, she posted photos and videos of her luxury trip around the world.
Could life get any better than this? I don't think so.
I got very upset with Suze when a few years ago she set up a Suze Orman prepaid card and was very excited about it and did a full national tour promoting the card. And I trashed the card. Why? Because it had fee on top of fee on top of fee. Now, thank goodness, the card is being shut down.
I just want to take a moment to say I sincerely appreciate you, Clark Howard. You're awesome. And for those of you who are listening who have never heard of Clark Howard, he's a great resource for you.
If you have one of the Suze Orman cards and you're going to be looking for a new card, you're going to be able to find ones that are much, much better out there that will not cost you an arm, a leg, and a foot to use.
Users received only a single convoluted letter stating that prepaid cards don't affect your credit scores and telling card users to spend all the money on their card within 1 month, which in many cases included thousands of dollars in long-term savings. Anyone who didn't get or understand that single letter was completely unable to access their money.
And that right there is why marketing this card as an alternative to your banking situation was such a huge red flag. Can you imagine putting your life savings onto a prepaid card, not getting that letter because it got lost or misinterpreting the letter, and then forfeiting all of your money when it gets shut down? This documentary alleges that is exactly what happened here when the card was quietly discontinued after only existing for, I think, a couple years. Most of the clips of Suze marketing her card are from 2012, and this article from Yahoo Finance is from June 18th, 2014. It's entitled, "Have a Suze Orman Approved Card, What to Do Now?" This article is all about what you need to do because the card is being shut down, and if you have one, action is going to be required if you want to keep your money. To reiterate one more time, everything in that documentary is alleged. I don't have any evidence, nor do I have a claim that Suze is genuinely guilty of being a liar and a fraudster around this card, even if the documentary makes a very compelling argument. And for how serious the claims are in that documentary, it's gone seriously underviewed. So what is the hope-filled takeaway from this information? A debit card and your bank transaction history is not related to what your FICO score is trying to measure. And anyone who claims otherwise must have some sort of different motive to be telling you about it, to be marketing a debit card as a means of building credit. I want you to ask about anything like this. How is the company making money? How are they benefiting from me? And I want you to ask this for the main topic because that is indeed what's happened again.